What happens when the unstoppable force of nature meets a flawed wall of concrete? Towns vanish, lives change in seconds, and the footage is unforgettable. These are 10 massive dam failures caught on camera, where engineering met disaster and the consequences were terrifying. When water turns violent, even steel and stone can't stand in its way. Some were caused by human error, others, pure, unforgiving nature. But everyone left behind a trail of chaos no one could ever forget. From decades-old negligence to natural disasters pushing dams past their limits, these failures sent shockwaves through entire regions. Let's count down the most catastrophic dam collapses ever filmed and what went so terribly wrong. Because sometimes, it's not the flood you see coming that does the most damage. These aren't just stories, they're warnings written in water and rubble. 10 Edenville Dam, Michigan. In May 2020, after days of relentless rain, the Edenville Dam in Michigan began to give way. A bystander captured the moment the eastern embankment collapsed, and it's as chilling as it sounds. Water surged downstream in a violent torrent, destroying the Sanford Dam just miles away. Nearly 11,000 people were evacuated. A federal report blamed nearly a century of poor maintenance, outdated design, and ignored safety warnings. The price of cutting corners: $200 million in damages, and entire communities uprooted overnight. Cars floated like toys, foundations cracked, and families watched everything they owned disappear in seconds. This wasn't a surprise. It was a disaster waiting to happen. And when it did, it showed no mercy. 9 Brumadinho Dam, Brazil. On January 25, 2019, a tailings dam at a Brazilian iron mine collapsed without warning. Security cameras recorded the moment sludge rushed like a tsunami, sweeping away offices and workers during lunch break. 270 people died, many buried alive. The disaster wasn't just horrifying, it was infuriating. The mining company, Vale SA, had already been linked to another deadly collapse in 2015. This time they were warned, and still did nothing. The collapse left behind miles of toxic red mud, broken families, and global outrage. Environmental damage stretched across rivers, forests, and food supplies. It wasn't just a tragedy, it was corporate negligence in its deadliest form. 8 Glacial Flood, Uttarakhand, India. Too high in the Himalayas. In 2021, a chunk of glacier broke loose, setting off a deadly chain reaction. 27 million cubic meter mass of rock and ice thundered into a river, creating a wave strong enough to burst a concrete dam. Villagers heard the sound like distant thunder until it hit them. The footage shows brown water turning valleys into death traps. Scientists called it a climate-induced avalanche, a warning that even in the mountains, the world is warming and reacting violently. Entire power plants were washed away in minutes. It was a stark reminder that ice, once a symbol of permanence, is now a ticking time bomb. The tragedy ignited urgent calls for glacial monitoring in the region. 7 Auburn Cofferdam, California. In 1986, California's unfinished Auburn Dam came within inches of a catastrophe. A temporary cofferdam, built to block water while the real dam was under construction, was overwhelmed by massive floods. The structure was designed to erode in stages, but the river had other plans. A 100-foot deep cut opened through the dam, sending engineers scrambling. While no one died, the near failure exposed just how risky even temporary dams can be in an unpredictable world. It was caught on camera, torrents eating through earth like butter. The event halted construction permanently. Today, the Auburn Dam remains an abandoned project, proof that nature doesn't wait for blueprints. 6 Ajka, Red Mud Disaster, Hungary. October 2010. A wall at an aluminum plant's waste reservoir in Ajka, Hungary collapsed, unleashing 1 million cubic meters of toxic red mud. The sludge ripped through streets like lava, burning skin, destroying homes, and killing 10 people. The town looked like a post-apocalyptic film set, red-stained buildings, overturned cars, and stunned survivors. Shockingly, the plant reopened just 5 days later. The European Union called it one of the continent's worst industrial disasters. Local rivers turned blood red, killing thousands of fish and wildlife. The chemical burns left lifelong scars on survivors. It was a chilling example of how industrial shortcuts can leave entire regions poisoned. 5 landslide dam break, Sichuan, China. In 2019, in the mountains of Sichuan, a massive landslide struck without warning. Entire forests, boulders, and tons of debris plowed down a slope and smashed through a dam, destroying everything in their path. Local construction workers barely escaped with their lives, fleeing as trees and soil swallowed the road behind them. Even the legendary giant Buddha of Latian, carved into a cliffside, saw its base underwater for the first time in 7 decades. Nature doesn't ask permission. The speed of the landslide stunned experts. Villages downstream had no time to react. It was the kind of disaster that turned roads into rivers and fear into reality. 4. Nam Ao Dam collapse, Laos. 5. In 2017, after days of non-stop rain, the Nam Ao Dam in Laos collapsed spectacularly. Video captured muddy water flooding towns, washing away vehicles and construction zones in seconds. In one dramatic clip, a bulldozer operator reverses just in time, while others aren't so lucky. Entire villages were cut off, and years later, survivors still wait for compensation. This wasn't just weather, it was poor construction meeting harsh reality. Investigations pointed to design flaws and low-grade materials. It revealed how fragile infrastructure is in flood-prone regions. And once again, warnings were missed until it was too late. 3. Mariana Dam disaster, Brazil. The Mariana Dam failure of 2015 was Brazil's worst environmental disaster. 43 million cubic meters of mining sludge engulfed entire towns. In Bento Rodrigues, families had only minutes to flee as mud poured into their homes. 19 people were killed. And what makes this even worse? A leaked internal report had already warned of structural failure 2 years earlier. Ignored warnings, repeat offenders, and still, no accountability. The toxic sludge contaminated hundreds of miles of river. It was the beginning of Brazil's reckoning with mining giants, and the scars remain today. 2. Sardoba Dam failure, Uzbekistan. In May 2020, heavy storms put pressure on the Sardoba Dam in Uzbekistan, and it cracked. Footage shows a violent breach opening like a wound, releasing nearly 1 billion cubic meters of water. Entire farming communities were destroyed, homes turned to debris, and livestock swept away. Despite emergency overflows and evacuations, the destruction was staggering. Damage exceeded $400 million, and many still live in temporary shelters today. It wiped out thousands of acres of crops. Families lost not just homes, but generations of livelihood. It was a perfect storm of mismanagement and extreme weather, caught on film for the world to see. 1. Ice dam collapse, Vermont, St. Johnsbury, Vermont, winter 2006. An ice dam formed on the river until a warm snap hit. A local man filmed as a seemingly peaceful stream exploded into chaos. A massive wall of frozen water and debris crashed downstream, rattling bridges and flooding roadways. It wasn't the biggest disaster on this list, but it's a chilling example of how even nature's quietest forms can turn violent in an instant. Chunks of ice piled onto streets like wrecking balls. Within minutes, the entire riverscape changed. It showed how fast a peaceful winter day can turn deadly. Outro, 8:30 às 9 horas. Narration. From ancient glaciers to aging concrete, these failures prove one thing. Even the strongest walls can't always hold back nature. Which one shocked you the most? Drop your answer in the comments below, smash that like button, and subscribe for more mind-blowing real events caught on camera. Because the next disaster might already be forming, and someone's camera might just catch it first. Until then, stay alert, stay curious, and respect the power of water.